All right, so tonight we're going to deep dive into something I'm sure we've all thought about, like how to raise kids, with values. Values that
Yeah.
stick.
Yeah.
Our source material this time is really targeted at parents who are Christian.
Oh, okay.
But honestly, I think there's so much in here that's valuable for, well, really any parent.
Yeah.
It's all about having these 15 conversations, key conversations with your kids
Mm-hmm.
about things like faith and integrity and kindness and even just like making tough choices.
Right. Like essential life skills, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That timeless stuff. So are you ready to like extract some golden nuggets from this?
Absolutely. I think what's really cool about this source is it doesn't just preach, it actually gives, parents practical ways to approach these conversations.
Right. Like it starts off strong, talking about building a personal relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know not everyone listening might be religious, but just think about it for a second. Helping kids connect with something like bigger than themselves, that's got to be universal, right?
It is. And
Yeah.
research actually shows that kids that have a strong sense of purpose and that can be rooted in faith or something else entirely,
Right.
but those kids actually tend to be more resilient, especially, going through adolescence.
Absolutely. And it makes me think about, the source goes on to talk about Jesus as a role model. And
Yeah.
again, even if you're not Christian, like we all want our kids to have those figures that they can look up to.
Right.
But how do we make sure that those role models like actually influence their behavior?
Yeah, the $1,000,000 question.
Not just like their Instagram feed.
That's the thing. The source talks about how God values honesty and integrity.
Hmm.
And honestly, those are traits that we need in the world so badly today.
Oh, tell me about it.
Like, think about it.
Yeah.
With all the fake news, the online personas, how are we raising kids who can tell truth from fiction and who aren't afraid to stand up for what they believe in?
It's like, how do you even make integrity cool when it seems like everyone's, cutting corners online?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think this source is definitely onto something here.
Yeah.
It's not just about telling our kids, hey, be honest. It's about giving them the tools to navigate this world where, honestly, isn't always rewarded. You know what I mean?
Totally. And it's not all doom and gloom.
Right.
The source also talks about kindness and love, which reflects, Christ's love.
Mm-hmm.
But even if we take religion out of it, empathy and social emotional intelligence, those are like skills that employers want today.
Absolutely. We're seeing a shift toward valuing not just, what you know, but how you treat other people.
Yeah.
And that starts way before a job interview.
Oh, for sure.
That starts with, how we raise our kids.
So true. Okay, so then the source dives into making wise choices,
Mm-hmm.
which is, well, kind of every parent's nightmare, right?
Oh, yeah.
Avoiding temptation and peer pressure.
That whole minefield.
The whole thing, yeah. But what I found really interesting here is the emphasis on actually teaching kids how to make decisions. Like, not just saying no, but like
Yeah.
walking them through the thought process,
It's about empowering them.
Yeah.
Like giving them the tools to weigh the pros and cons, to think
Mhm.
about consequences.
Yeah.
It's like building up their decision-making muscle so when they're faced with a choice, and they will be, they've got that framework.
They're ready. And it's not even just about these external choices.
Right.
It's also about like handling their own emotions,
Yeah.
seeking guidance.
Mhm.
And I was thinking, like, in our good vibes only culture, are we even teaching kids that it's okay to not be okay?
Such a good point. We need to normalize talking about all emotions, not just the happy ones.
Yeah.
I think the source hints at this, but I'd even take it a step further.
Okay.
It's about equipping our kids with coping mechanisms, whether that's journaling or mindfulness, like whatever works for them.
Yeah.
Because life throws curveballs,
It does.
and we want them to be able to, handle that.
Exactly. Resilience. That's the word.
Mm.
And speaking of resilience, the source kind of shifts gears here and starts talking about serving others,
Right.
living with purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, okay, now we're getting into future leader territory.
We are. And what's so fascinating is that this idea of meaningful work,
Yeah.
like making a difference in the world,
Yeah.
it's resonating with young people now more than ever.
Sure.
They want their lives to count. And this source, even though it's coming from a religious angle, it really taps into that.
Absolutely. It's not just about getting a job. It's about finding your place in the world.
Exactly.
So good. But hold on, before we too carried away with like saving the world.
Yeah.
The source drops this this bomb about gratitude and contentment.
Mm-hmm.
And you might be thinking, okay, what does that even have to do with leadership?
Right.
Right.
But here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
In a world that's telling our kids that they need more, more, more,
Yeah.
teaching them to actually appreciate what they have, to
Yeah.
find joy in those simple things,
Yeah.
that's radical.
Yeah. That's huge.
It's like an antidote to that comparison trap that social media feeds.
Yes. And you know what? Research actually shows that gratitude is linked to increased happiness, better relationships, even physical health.
Mm.
It's not just some fluffy, feel-good thing.
It's powerful.
It's powerful. Okay, so we've got purpose.
Yeah.
We've got gratitude.
Uh-huh.
But we can't talk about raising kids today without talking about, well,
The elephant in the room.
the elephant in the room,
Yeah.
social media, and the source tackles it.
Oh, it does, head on.
Yeah, but it doesn't just say limit screen time.
Right.
It goes deeper.
Yeah.
It talks about using social media responsibly, which, let's be real, is a whole new world for parents who grew up, pre-internet.
It is. It's like, how do we teach them to be good digital citizens?
It's not even just about rules anymore.
Right.
It's about critical thinking,
Mm-hmm.
evaluating information, understanding the impact of what they post and what they even consume online.
And it all circles back to those core values we were talking
Let's-
about.
no.
Integrity, kindness, wise choices.
Right.
It's all kind of intertwined in this digital landscape.
Wow, there's just so much to unpack here. It's like this source, even though it's, coming from a religious perspective,
Yeah.
it's giving us a glimpse into the challenges, but also the opportunities of raising kids in this world.
It is, and we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
There's so much more to explore, so much wisdom to glean from these conversations.
I'm taking notes.
Me too. It's interesting how this source, even though it's for Christian parents, it really speaks to something universal when it comes to, like, guiding young people.
I know, right? It talks about this whole thing of understanding God's plan for their lives.
Yeah.
Which, okay, not everyone's going to vibe with that.
Yeah.
But the core idea there, isn't it just about helping kids find their spark? That thing that really lights them up. And I don't even mean like career-wise.
Right. It's way broader than that.
Yeah.
Some kids are all about music. Some are into activism. Some are like natural inventors. But the point is, research shows that kids who figure out what they're passionate about earlier on, they actually have better self-esteem, and they even handle stress better as teenagers. So how do we as parents help them find those passions?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Okay.
And the source talks about seeking God's guidance, but putting that in a more secular way, it's
Yeah.
like, are we encouraging our kids to find good mentors,
Mm-hmm.
to really explore different things, to
Yeah.
just be open to possibilities? Are we showing them that it's okay to, try things and maybe even fail sometimes?
Yeah, it's about fostering that growth mindset.
Yes.
And the source touches on this with the concept of sin and redemption.
Right.
Now, regardless of whether you believe in those terms, we all mess up, right?
Okay.
So are we
Mhm.
teaching kids that mistakes are opportunities to learn, to course correct,
Yeah.
not reasons to beat yourself up?
Totally, because the world's not going to go easy on them.
No, it's not.
And the source talks about handling peer pressure, staying true to your faith.
Mhm.
Again, we can kind of secularize that.
Yeah.
It's about having the guts to be yourself,
Yeah.
even when everyone else is doing the opposite.
Mm.
But how do we equip them for that? It's so easy to say, just say no, but in the heat of the moment.
Exactly. It's about building their confidence, their ability to really stand their ground.
Right.
And you know what helps, believe it or not? Role playing.
Really?
Like literally practicing saying no to things that they might be pressured into, or having those what if conversations beforehand.
Yeah.
What if your friend offers you drugs? What do you do? What if someone's being bullied? How do you intervene?
Yeah, it's like giving them a script almost so
Yeah.
they're not caught off guard,
Exactly.
which actually makes me think back to something we've talked about earlier, this whole idea of gratitude and contentment.
Mm-hmm.
The source really emphasizes this. And at first, I was like, okay, yeah, gratitude, that's nice. But then I thought about it, and aren't we constantly battling this never enough mentality?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
Ads, social media, even some schools, it's all about achievement, getting ahead, having the best stuff.
Yeah.
But if our kids don't have that inner sense of contentment, will any of that external success really fulfill them?
Right. It's so true.
This source, even with its religious angle,
Yeah.
it's onto something really deep.
Deep. Yeah. And it's like gratitude is that foundation, the anchor that keeps them grounded
Absolutely.
amidst all the craziness.
And studies show that it's a skill you can cultivate.
Oh, wow.
It's not just about being born lucky and happy.
Right.
journaling, gratitude practices. It's like building a muscle.
So cool. Which, circles us right back to social media.
Right.
The source talks about using it responsibly,
Yeah.
which feels like a huge thing now.
It is. It's not just about screen time limits anymore. Think
No.
about digital literacy.
Okay.
Are we teaching kids to, critically evaluate what they see online,
Yeah.
to spot misinformation,
Yeah.
to understand the ethics of sharing and commenting? I mean, we're basically sending them into this Wild West
Right.
with a few rules and just hoping for the best.
Yeah, and they're going to mess up,
Of course.
which is why this focus on forgiveness in the source is so relevant.
Oh, yeah.
But even taking religion out of it, like how do we even teach that? Because let's be real, we struggle with it as adults.
We do, and I think that's the key, modeling it.
Yeah.
Showing them that it's okay to make amends, to apologize, to move on, and also forgiving ourselves.
Right.
Because if we're always beating ourselves up,
Yeah.
how can we expect our kids to show themselves grace?
That's so true. It's like this whole cycle of forgiveness, right?
Yeah.
It starts with us, then it goes out to our kids,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully then to their friends, their community. It's almost revolutionary.
It is, and the source, even with its religious language, it hints at that.
It does.
Like, it's not just about being a good Christian. It's about being a good human being in a world that desperately needs more of those.
I love that. So we've covered a lot. Purpose, social media, gratitude, even forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
But this source has one more big topic we can't ignore.
Okay.
It talks about this whole staying pure until marriage thing.
Right.
Obviously, not everyone listening is going to agree with that belief.
Yeah.
But there's something valuable there if we reframe it.
Absolutely.
So whether you agree with the source's stance on, premarital sex or not,
Mm-hmm.
it brings up this really important topic of healthy relationships.
Yes.
Are we having open and honest conversations with our kids about consent,
Mm-hmm.
about respecting boundaries, about what a truly loving and respectful relationship actually looks like? Yeah, it's like we're not just talking about, the birds and the bees anymore.
Right.
It's so much deeper than that.
It is.
It's about respect, communication, like emotional intelligence, all those things that go into making a healthy relationship, romantic or not.
And those are the building blocks of, a strong society.
Yeah.
This source, even in its, own way, is pointing to those crucial skills.
Yeah.
The ones that sometimes get lost, in the rush of academics and extracurriculars.
It's so true, and it makes me think back to that whole open communication thing.
Right.
The source really stresses creating that safe space for kids to ask questions, like even the hard ones. But honestly, how do we actually get teenagers to open up? I mean, that's easier said than done.
It's tough.
It is.
It's a constant dance, we can't force it, but we can create the conditions.
Yeah.
Being genuinely curious about their lives, listening without judgment.
Right.
Teenagers, they can spot a fake a mile away.
Oh, for sure.
They need to know that we're on their side, even if we don't agree with, all their choices.
So it's not about having all the answers.
Yeah.
It's about being that safe harbor,
It is.
that sounding board. And you know what? Thinking back on all 15 of these conversations that the source talks about, that's the thread that runs through all of them. Open, honest, and respectful communication.
It really is. And it's not just talking at them,
Yeah.
It's listening. It's that back and forth.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means admitting that we don't know everything, that we're, figuring things out right alongside them.
Absolutely. Because, let's be real, parenting is a constant learning curve.
It is.
There's no manual, no one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
But this source, even coming from a religious point of view,
Yeah.
it gave us so much to think about.
It did. We've covered so much, from finding purpose and cultivating gratitude to navigating social media and building healthy relationships.
Right. And what I love is that it all comes back to those core values.
Mm-hmm.
The values that, honestly, I think any parent wants to instill in their kids.
Exactly. And I hope that this deep dive has given you, our listener, something to think about, maybe some new tools for your parenting toolbox.
I hope so.
And even, spark some conversations around your dinner table.
Me too. And speaking of things to think about, I wanted to leave you with one last question.
Okay.
It's inspired by the source's emphasis on forgiveness. Like, how can we actually practice forgiveness in our own lives?
Mm-hmm.
Not just, preach it to our kids, How can we show that grace and compassion in a world that honestly sometimes feels like it rewards holding grudges?
It's a good question.
It is, and it's something I'm going to be thinking about, and I hope you will too.
For sure.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.